Tucker Carlson has called for Joe Biden to be removed by invoking the 25th Amendment, and my stars and garters, Tucker Carlson is correct. In the past week or so, Joe Biden has essentially said U.S. troops would enter Ukraine. The U.S. would respond with chemical weapons or worse to Russian attacks with chemical weapons, and that Vladimir Putin, for God's sakes, cannot remain in charge, effectively calling for regime change. When questioned about this, Joe Biden said, that never happened. It's amazing. Doocy of Fox News said, these things need clarification. What he asked was, every time Joe Biden says something, the White House comes out and says, no, he didn't mean it. And Tucker Carlson makes an interesting point. He says that Joe Biden doesn't know what his press team is saying. He comes out and says a whole bunch of crazy crackpot nonsense and then goes to bed. And the White House comes out and says, ignore everything he just said. This is a scary time to have a president this week, my friends. Look, there's reports coming out right now that Russia is going to be pulling back its siege in Ukraine. This is good news. And I'm glad to see there's some de-escalation happening, some potential negotiations. Hopefully things go well and the war stops. But take a look at one of the most dangerous things. I mean, there are a couple very dangerous things that Joe Biden has said. And if we get out of this one unscathed, I think we're lucky. From U.S. News, Putin's use of chemical weapons would trigger a response in kind, Biden says. Western powers are increasingly concerned Vladimir Putin will use chemical weapons, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. When Biden was asked about this, he said, no, it didn't happen. No. Doocy said, what does it mean? What are you going to do? And he's, I'm not telling you. He says, the people want to know. Doocy says, here we go. Tucker Carlson, I agree. Joe Biden needs to be taken out of office with the 25th Amendment. But it's not going to happen because for the Democratic establishment, they just don't care. As long as they can hold on to a single thread of power, they will watch this country burn. From the Daily Mail, Biden, 79, uses cheat sheets to answer press questions on his unscripted call for Putin to be ousted in Russia. Rand Paul claims need for cue cards shows somebody who's in cognitive decline. I agree. Look, this is what's important, and then we'll read through this. Joe Biden, his White House came out and said, no, he's not calling for regime change. Joe Biden then says, I am not calling for regime change. Nobody would believe that. Nobody would believe that. And then Biden says he's not walking back his comments about how Putin cannot remain in power. It's actually kind of scary that in the same sentence he contradicts himself, and it's because he's not there. He's not there. Man. The Daily Mail says Joe Biden was mocked online on Monday for using a printed cheat sheet of answers to expected questions when he faced the media to discuss the Ukraine war. Biden was in Poland on Saturday and declared in Warsaw that Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power before flying back to Washington, D.C. Asked on Monday about his remarks, which many saw as advocating for regime change, the 79-year-old president referred to a typed cue card for hints. He said he made no apologies for his remarks, made off the cuff and not part of his prepared speech. It's more an aspiration than anything. He shouldn't be in power. People like this shouldn't be ruling countries, but they do. The fact is they do, but it doesn't mean I can't express my outrage about it. I was talking to the Russian people. The last part of my speech was talking to the Russian people, telling them what we thought. The note reads, take a look, we got a photo. If you weren't advocating for regime change, what did you mean? Can you clarify? I was expressing the moral outrage I felt towards the action of this man. I was not articulating a change in policy. It's really fascinating, huh? Biden had also anticipated a question about the reaction from French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron said on Sunday that he would not have used Biden's words, adding that he saw his task as achieving first a ceasefire and then the total withdrawal of Russian troops by diplomatic means. What we can see here is that when Biden is allowed to speak publicly and candidly, he begins to figuratively burn the whole thing to the ground. Look, Lindsey Graham came out and called for the assassination of Putin. That's psychotic. And they're not going to impeach the guy. Yeah, I know, impeachment has become like a buzzword for the left. Impeach Clarence Thomas, impeach Trump. But come on. Republicans can get on board with this right now. They won't do it because right now they got to tie in the Senate. And Kamala Harris is their tiebreaker with Manchin. Things can swing in favor of Republicans. Tough call, huh? No, serious question. Me personally, I think Lindsey Graham should not be in office. I think he's been duplicitous, as many of these establishment uniparty members have been. And I think his calls for the assassination of Putin twice warrant his removal from office. We're trying to stop war and de-escalate it. He's certainly trying to make it worse. Is it worth getting rid of Lindsey Graham if it means it'll be 50 Democrat, 49 Republican? You'll always have, I suppose what would happen is the governor would appoint someone, so you'd probably get a Republican replacement, but it's just going to be an establishment shill. So what do? My friends, if you live, if you have the opportunity to primary Lindsey Graham, take it. Take the opportunity. You take a look at Joe Biden's cards, and I bring up Lindsey Graham because what Joe Biden said is also very, very dangerous. You look at this. If you weren't advocating for regime change, what did you mean? Macron said he would not have used those words. No, NATO has never been more united, so saith the cue cards. I wonder what else the other cue cards said. All right. Joe Biden coming out and saying Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power is ending diplomatic opportunity for ending this war. Look, things seem to be de-escalating, and I'm just crossing my fingers that it de-escalates. We're looking at food shortages in fall if we don't get production back up, right? I've shouted out safeandreadymeals.com several times because Russia's, I think, fertilizer costs are up like 350%. If this all stops now, there's an opportunity it won't be that bad. But the fear is planting season is coming. I'm not a farmer, so farmers comment, correct me if I'm, what I'm getting wrong. But the general idea I've been told is planting season is around the corner and fertilizer costs are way too high. This means the fall harvest is going to be particularly brutal. I think we need someone else, man. I wonder how many people are wishing for Donald Trump right now. I saw a video of this woman in her car. Maybe you guys saw it. And she's like, I'd like to apologize for voting for Joe Biden because of how bad everything's been. And I'm like, yep, good on you for sure. I wonder, though, what we would be going through if Donald Trump was president. I kind of think things would be a lot better. I really do. I think things would have improved dramatically. Perhaps international, you know what? I think across the board, 80 out of 100, it would have been way better. There'd be no war in Ukraine. I firmly believe that. There would be troops coming home. America's borders would be secure. There would be more jobs. Unemployment would be down. Wages would be up. That's what we were looking at in 2019. The pandemic threw everything for a loop, but boy, did Donald Trump do a great job helping the American people. No. Hold on there a minute. I'm not going to give all the blame to Joe Biden and all the credit to Donald Trump. Because truth be told, Trump does deserve some blame for some things. Increase in drone strikes. I understand why. Missiles 59 Tomahawks into Syria, escalating tensions for sure. But all in all, it's the big picture. Joe Biden, what has he done that's been good? Honestly, I have no idea. The one thing I could have given Joe Biden credit for was when he sped up the timeline for the release of the vaccine. He's like, we're going to get this done a month early. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's something. But then that year, 2021, there were more COVID deaths than the year prior. So even with the supposed keys to the castle, here you go. Donald Trump has handed you this vaccine, Joe Biden. There were still more deaths, failed policy, and an inability to get anything done even when he ramped things up. I suppose you can say ramping things up helped. Nah, sorry, I'm not playing that game. Donald Trump in 2020, the start of the pandemic, when it was novel and everything was going nuts, did not have access to any kind of, initially, any kind of treatment for this. And we still saw more COVID deaths in 2021. After we've hammered out all the details of our strategy and our plan, look, a year on from the pandemic, we had more information, more data, and that means Joe Biden being handed all of this opportunity did not do it correctly. It's also the governors. I'm not just blaming Joe Biden for everything. The fact is the buck stops with him. Now, Donald Trump had a heavy administrative priority on the southern border. He's got, his provisions like Title 42. He was ramping up law enforcement at the border. He was withdrawing our troops from the Middle East. Vladimir Putin saw the crushing of ISIS, and he said, all right. He saw Donald Trump saying, we don't want our troops in Syria. Putin said, all right. Vladimir Putin Russia, they have a military base in Syria, Tartus. So when Donald Trump said ISIS is bad and we're going to crush it, then Donald Trump said we're going to enact the Abraham Accords and try and bring stability to the region. Vladimir Putin was like, well, it's good for me. And it really was. A lot of people will say, see, Donald Trump was helping Putin. If by helping Putin you mean he was helping Lebanon, Israel, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey, Ukraine, yeah, okay, sure. Donald Trump was de-escalating tensions and bringing stability to the region. It's amazing. The Abraham Accords, remember this? Peace agreements, economic agreements at the very least, between Israel and many Arabic nations. And it was crazy that when he pulled this off, the left comes out and they're like, yeah, well, you know, some of these countries were secretly allied anyway. This is BS. And I'm like, yo, they're allowing you to fly planes over their territory. That's crazy. You can now go from Saudi Arabia into Israel. Like, this is the Trump administration, man. You know, look, foreign policy matters a whole lot to me, which is why the Ukraine stuff is so is prevalent in the content stories I work on, the segments I produce. When I saw the results of Donald Trump's foreign policy, I was just like, wow. Seemingly for the first time in my life, there was an opportunity for peace in our time. I know it's funny to say, right? I said that on purpose, obviously, referencing Neville Chamberlain, but far from perfect. Donald Trump ramped up drone strikes, and Ian on Timcast RL is often critical of this. And okay, yeah, drone strikes are not good, but the idea was if we're withdrawing our troops and we don't want ISIS or Al-Qaeda or other groups to take over, you use drones instead of humans. There are some bad things about it. If it's a precursor to total withdrawal, I'm a fan. Joe Biden screwed everything up. He screwed up the withdrawal. Everything has just gotten worse. Tucker Carlson says, now is the time to invoke the 25th Amendment. He says, Joe Biden announced he was running for president again in April of 2019. It was Biden's third or fourth attempt at office, depending on how you count. So at that moment, most Americans thought they knew who Joe Biden was. 2 months later, Biden appeared on stage in Miami for the first Democratic primary debate, and he was hard to recognize even for people who had known him. Extensive plastic surgery had made him look like a different person. But most jarring was the fact that he did not sound like the old Joe Biden. You probably remembered Biden as blustery and jovial Irish charm by the bucket load. He was famous for that. And yet on stage, Biden came off as remote and muted. He seemed to be at times afraid to speak for fear of tripping over his own words or forgetting them. Several times the camera caught him just staring out into middle distance. He was apparently absorbed in memory. I think he was probably looking at cue cards or a teleprompter. President Joe Biden yelling at reporter, focus on this man Trump and what he's doing that no president has done. No president, blah, 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 blah. So let's get to the point. Tucker Carlson, I'm not going to rehash the entire segment he did. He mentions Peter Doocy and Joe Biden. This is remarkable. There's a segment, you really got to watch it. We played it last night. When Peter Doocy asks Joe Biden about all of his statements being walked back, and then Joe Biden's just like, I'm not telling you anything. None of that happened. And wow, I was playing that in the green room here at IRL with a bunch of people who were watching and they were listening. And then all of a sudden everyone busts out laughing. And it was a kind of laughter of like, we're screwed and we know it. And this is just funny. Kind of makes me feel like we're on the Titanic and, me and everybody else are just the band playing, our violins and our instruments as the ship is sinking, going down with the ship, I suppose. Peter Doocy said, are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of the big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back? Peter Doocy said, it made it sound like in the last couple of days, you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine, that you said it was possible the U.S. would use chemical weapons, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia. Joe Biden said, none of the three occurred. None of the three occurred. None of the three. Mr. President, you interpret the language that way. This is insane. Peter Doocy was flabbergasted in this line of questioning when Joe Biden said, didn't happen. It's like, how do you respond to something so absolutely demented? Did Joe Biden genuinely forget what he himself had said only a few days ago? Yes. Now, I don't think this is an issue of Joe Biden just desperately trying to cover it up. Some people might be like, no. Joe Biden is just trying to trick people. No, I think Joe Biden forgot. I think he genuinely forgot. He's holding cue cards. He doesn't know how to answer questions. He genuinely didn't know he said these things. I'm sorry. I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Peter Doocy even giving him the benefit of the doubt, being like, it sounded like you said, no, he legit said it. Joe Biden said to the U.S. troops, when you're over there and you see these people standing in front of a damn tank, what's a tank doing? What are they going to be doing to stand in front of a tank? And he's like, no, I was talking about Ukraine soldiers in training in Poland. No, you weren't. You said when you're over there. They're already in Poland. The soldiers are already in Poland. What are you talking about when you're over there? What, 10 feet away at the training camp or whatever? He's talking about Ukraine. When he said if Putin's use of chemical weapons would trigger a response in kind, in kind? That he's saying he's going to use chemical weapons. Yo, man. Biden voters need to apologize. I'll tell you that. Under Donald Trump, they lied about everything. Ukraine gate, Russia gate, all that nonsense. I didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I ain't got nothing to apologize for. Not to mention that if you did vote for Donald Trump in 2016, actually, I owe you an apology. I should have voted for him back then as well. I got lucky he won because things generally improved in this country. 2020 was bad and 2021 was bad. So if we're going to play games, we can say Biden and Trump both had bad COVID days. But look at how awful everything is now. It's bad. What's getting walked back? To be clear, he's not fit to lead, particularly right now. Bernie Sanders scared the hell out of the banks. Democratic Party short-circuited his campaign and installed Joe Biden. Biden seemed kind of passive for a lot of voters. That was a welcome respite from the last president, who seemed kind of loud. That's what actually happened. No one anticipated at that moment that we would be on the cusp of a war with a nuclear-armed power in less than 2 years. But that's exactly where we are now. And under those circumstances, to have someone who has literally no idea what's going on, doesn't even know that he's changing long-standing policies that adults have thought through when he does it. Does Scary describe that? No, it's worse. And so he goes on to say, all right, joke's over. Too much is at stake. If there was in U.S. history ever a time to invoke the 25th Amendment, it is now. As Joe Biden himself put it, for God's sakes, this man cannot remain in power for all of our sakes. I agree, Tucker. Just one problem there, my good friend. Kamala Harris. Okay. I suppose you impeach them both? I don't know. Matt Gaetz apparently came out and said that he's going to nominate Donald Trump to be Speaker of the House of Representatives. There's some rumors that Trump is open to the idea, and I beg the fates. I beg Odin, Zeus, whoever is up there. Please make that happen. If not for the sheer absurdity and the humor in that circumstance, just Donald Trump as Speaker of the House would just be oh so incredible, because you don't have to be a member of Congress to be the Speaker. So please, whoever is out there in this grand universe watching above, wouldn't you all just be so entertained by Donald Trump as Speaker of the House? And then when you impeach Joe Biden and Kamala, Donald Trump would become president again. Would that not be the most hilarious thing? But truth be told, it would be pretty good for this country because we might get things back on track. Now, of course, Donald Trump is probably going to be running for office. I'm pretty sure he is. He just can't announce it yet because of federal election laws. But he's like, a lot of people are going to be very happy. And the joke there is like, yeah, maybe the people who hate you because he's not running. But no, I think it's clear that Donald Trump is going to be running in 2020. Probably in 2023 is when he'll start running for office. He may announce he's running sooner than that. He's already been doing rallies. He loves doing rallies. He loves speaking. And right now, key opportunity. It is so bad. And Joe Biden's approval rating is so low. Now is the opportunity for Donald Trump to come in and say, miss me yet? Which he already has, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I mean, I certainly do. It's crazy how I looked at Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Donald Trump and said they're both trash. You know, Trump for different reasons. I know he had a bit of a populist. He was a populist. He had a Bernie-ish streak. But I'm like, that guy, I'm not gonna vote for Donald Trump. I'm not going to be the guy who's looking back at, I couldn't do it. I didn't like what he had to say. Some of it was okay. I didn't think of him as like this evil demon or anything. I'm not so blind as to not, actually look at the facts and the details. But Hillary Clinton was a monster. And Donald Trump, to me, was more of a joke. 2022 came around. And what did we see? Joe Biden. And I was like, no way, man. Talk about corruption. And boy, do we know it. And Donald Trump was doing a good job. And I was like, you know what? I was wrong. I should have voted for him in 2016, but there's no way I could have predicted this. Now we take a look at, we took a look at, in August of 2020, Donald Trump's second term agenda. And I was like, it's good. Getting rid of critical race theory and government contracts, effectively upholding the Civil Rights Act. He's talking about school choice, protecting our borders, all the stuff he was currently doing, withdrawing from the Middle East. I was like, let's roll, man. Let's do it. Donald Trump, let's take what we can get. It's funny because there's so many stories I hear about people who are like, nowadays they're like, you voted for Trump, and they're like, ugh. And then a few months later, they're like, I totally get it. I totally get it. Because if you're watching how bad things are getting, if you're looking at gas prices, it's just so remarkable that gas was below $2 under Trump. Now, you can blame COVID for that, but gas was like $2.30 under Trump. We became a net oil exporter. Isn't that crazy? So the people who are like, it's not Joe Biden's fault. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't even care to atomize or quantify, okay? But I do it all the time because people refuse to believe that it is Biden's fault. Not in every aspect, but certainly there are key points where Biden has screwed us. Banning fracking on public lands and shutting down Keystone has a profound impact on the speculative drive of oil. Nord Stream 2 sanctions. It's remarkable how Joe Biden made us less energy independent almost immediately. And people would be like, it's not his fault. Sure, they're trying to claim, but the oil and gas leases aren't being fulfilled by these oil companies. It's like, bro, Joe Biden also halted several oil and gas leases because of climate change costs. There's a lawsuit going on. Blame him or not, whatever. The point is, all that matters. Under Trump, gas cheap. Under Biden, gas expensive. You want to break down the nitty-gritty of the economic policies and plans? It's simple. Donald Trump was the drill baby drill president, and he was removing environmental regulations, and a lot of people didn't like it. But gas was cheap. Joe Biden's ramping up environmental regulations, shutting down energy production, harming the energy sector, and people are surprised gas prices have gone up. Remarkable. I agree with Tucker. Get Joe Biden out of there. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.